This flat fish I'm filleting is the familiar flounder. You're going to see me and a French female fish professor fixing fancy fish today on the French Chef.
The French Chef is made possible by a grant from the Polaroid Corporation.
Welcome to the French Chef. I'm Julia Child. Today we're going to do fish fundamentals using whole fish. And these are the basic things we all ought to know, like cleaning and filleting and boning and even eating. And we're going to have a private lesson with a fabulous French fish professor in a supermarket outside of Paris. The French, are very, very fond of fresh fish. And their fish displays are so lively. They're done with great style, especially in this supermarket. This is a French supermarket, a very fancy one. And what I love about it, all these fish are so beautifully displayed. They're all on ice, and you can pick them up and feel them, and you can smell them, and you really know what you're getting. This is this famous sole, which we don't get fresh, but which grows here in the Atlantic and also in the Mediterranean. It has a lovely firm flesh. It's white on the underside, like our flounder, and gray on the top side. And I think it's one of the glories of French fishery. That's certainly one of the handsomest fish displays I think I've ever seen. And that lovely Dover sole that you saw belongs to the flat fish family, which swims like this and lies on the bottom of the ocean with its gray top uppermost, so that if you look down onto it, it's camouflaged in the sand. And then, of course, it has a pale belly, usually, which is lying in the sand. And of course, we don't have the real sole in America, but we certainly have plenty of fish of the flat fish family, and most of them are called sole. There's the West Coast Rex sole and the Petrale sole, and on the East Coast there's the gray sole, but none of them are sole. They're all flounders. And this one is an East Coast one called the gray sole, or the witch flounder. And this is one of our more expensive so-called soles, because the meat is the whitest. But as you will notice, if you can see, there's a line of meat that runs up from the tail up to the head, but it's a rather narrow one. When you get to the small bones on the sides, that's mostly jelly. It's not real meat. And on the underside, it's gray. I suppose that's why it's called gray sole. And then we have the yellowtail flounder, and we have this is a great big one called the dab, which is a full-meated, a very fine, flat fish, and a very good sole substitute. And then we have the yellowtail, which is called yellowtail because its tail is actually yellow, as you see on the side and on the end of the tail. And this is an excellent fish because it's full meated, and it's really the backbone of the flounder fishing industry. And all flatfish, whether they're flounder or sole, have the same bone structure. It's just a flat bone structure with a bone that goes down with the middle, and then others to the side. And if you're going to fillet a fish, which means taking the meat off the bone, it's really filleting and boning are arts, just like carving a turkey. And if you go to a chef's training school, you're taught how to do it. In Paris, there's a food trade school called l'École des métiers de l'alimentation. And we asked Madame Pasquet, who teaches there, to meet us at the beautiful fish display in the French supermarket to give us a demonstration.
Alors maintenant, si vous le voulez, nous allons commencer par le dépouillage de la sole.
We're going to first show you this is the channel sole, and the marvelous things about this is that you just peel the skin right off it.
Je contourne la tête, je dépouille le second côté.
And look at how she just turns it over.
L'important est de ne pas déchirer
You don't want to,
la chair au long de
You're not-
l'arête.
not supposed to.
À ce moment-là, la sole est faite en filet.
And now the fish is going to be filleted. She cuts right down through the middle of it.
Pour faire le filet de sole, on incise le long de la ligne latérale
You cut
et l'on
along.
glisse le couteau comme un rasoir.
You cut down through the middle of the bone and then you slip the knife under the fillet like a razor. Look at
Second
that.
côté, de la même façon, le couteau glisse en rasoir.
Second side, same as the first, with a razor-like cut of the knife. And the knife is very, very sharp. C'est très, très bien aiguisé.
Ah oui, bien sûr, il le faut, c'est nécessaire.
You
Maintenant,
can't-
le troisième côté,
Now's the third fillet. You see, it comes right up to the head. Et vous coupez le
Avec-
bas avec l'arête.
avec un retour de main.
Oui.
Nous n'allons pas jeter l'arête, car elle servira à faire le fumet de poisson.
And we're not going to throw away the bones because that makes a wonderful fumée de poisson fish stock.
Nous n'allons pas jeter les œufs non plus, car certains clients nous les réclament.
You can also eat the eggs.
Comme les filets de,
Mhm.
comme les filets de sole.
You can just season them, flour them, and saute them in butter. Et voilà, c'est tout prêt. It's all ready. Et c'est tout.
Et c'est tout.
Et c'est tout. Voilà. Isn't Madame Pasquet is marvelously skillful, isn't she? You remember she began by peeling the skin off of that channel sole, and it came off just like adhesive tape. And that's really the great difference between the true sole and all other of the flat flounder type of fishes. You can peel a sole, but you can't peel a flounder. With a flounder, you've got to fillet it first, and then you can get the skin off. And now here's a filleted flounder, and you note that central bone structure right there, and then the rest of the bones which go off sideways. You can see if you look here at this dab spelt D-A-B, you notice this line that comes right along from the tail on up to the top of the gills. And that's the line that you follow to start the filleting. And take a tough knife and just cut right down following that line and outlining it. And then you come up to the neck part up here. And then get yourself a knife, if you can, that this is a French filleting knife. And you see it's flexible. Everything having to do with fish seems to begin with F, like a flexible fish filleter. But you see how with a flexibility, you just come right along that flat bone, and it's just as easy as pie. Then I imagine Madame Pasquet might frown at this, but I find that a pair of scissors, which don't seem to begin with F, are useful here because there's a little edge where there's some little bones at the sides which aren't part of the fish fillet, so that you get them off. So there's your fillet all nicely taken off, and there's your bone structure. And I've done really quite well there. There's a little bit of left in here that I could have removed but didn't. And you should then, now to take the skin off, you take the small end and then you hold on to it, and with your knife almost parallel to the board, you just wiggle both knife and skin, and the skin comes off. There are some fish that it's hard to skin because the skin is very tender. But with this dab, it has a fairly tough skin, and that comes off very nicely. Then you can trim it off, and you should save all the trimmings and the fish frame and everything else, because if you're going to cook the fish and fill it, say, in a white wine sauce, you can make a beautiful white wine fish fumé with the bones. This is called the fish frame when it's all the meat is off it. You can use that to make a fish stock with. So that's how you fillet flat fish. But you have to use a different technique when you have oval type fish that swim this way, like the salmon and the trout and the bass. And these are the usual system for cleaning the fish is to slit it right up the belly like this. But Madame Pasquet has a marvelous method of removing all the viscera through the gill opening without slitting the belly at all. So that, and you can use her method for any fish, whether it's large or small. And I asked her to show it to us on a large fish, a bass.
Et puis maintenant, nous allons préparer un bain.
This is a bass, an Atlantic bass.
Regardez sa fraîcheur.
You can
L'on
tell
voit
why
la
it's
fraîcheur
fresh
par son œil.
by its eye.
Puis
Look
les
at
ouïes
its gills
et le maintien du poisson.
and the general aspect of the fish.
Toutes les écailles sont en place.
All the scales are in place,
Et il y a encore un mucus.
and there's also a mucus,
Alors maintenant, nous allons le préparer pour le mettre au four.
and we're going to prepare it for putting it in the oven.
Je vais peut-être vous mettre des écailles dans les cheveux.
Oh, mais ça va. She said I'm going to get some scales in my hair at the same time. Be sure that all the scales are off. It's not fun to get a scale in your mouth. Je trouve que c'est
Alors maintenant, nous allons couper les rayons épineux.
Going to cut all those sharp pointed
Notre
things
ciseau
off.
a une lame en dents de scie.
Ah.
C'est spécial
This
pour
is a serrated edge. Now,
éviscérer le poisson.
Now
Je
to
vais
take a-
couper cette petite peau.
she's going to cut this little skin. And look at, and she doesn't separate it. Et vous ne séparez pas là.
Il
Ça
ne le
reste
faut pas.
attaché. This won't hold its head if you cut that little piece. Now she's pulling out these gills again. Wow.
Alors je prends le tube digestif.
That is really the digestive tube down there. Just pull it right out. Ça, c'est merveilleux de voir cette façon de faire. C'est beaucoup plus joli. The
Alors
point
là,
of this is so that you don't make a hole really in the fish. A
Comme
little
pour la
tiny hole
truite,
down it there. As for
je
the trout,
rattrape le petit bout de tube
and then she
digestif.
gets the final end of the big digestive tube and pulls it out.
Il ne faut pas le laver,
And you're not supposed to wash it. Pourquoi pas, madame?
car la chair serait buvard.
Oh,
Et
because
votre poisson n'aurait pas la même saveur du tout.
oh, because the
Alors
fish,
nous l'essuyons avec un sopalin.
the fish flesh, if you wash it, will absorb water and like a sponge. And so what she does is just
Alors là,
dry
il
it
est
off
prêt,
with a
il est
towel.
prêt.
That's beautifully done. The important thing here is this is attached so that during the cooking, the head won't come apart. I think it was very interesting that Madame Pasquet doesn't wash her fish inside. I think that's rather French because they feel that washing takes off the flavor of people as well as of fish. I always do wash the fish, but then I don't do it as neatly as she does. So here's one that is clean from like hers, with all the insides out and everything is closed. And then here is the usual cleaning, which is the slit belly. And I'm going to, when you're cooking them whole, I think the Madame Pasquier method of not having the slit belly is particularly useful if you're going to poach it whole, like a whole poached salmon. But I'm going to do truite meunière, which means trout sautéed in butter, and I've just put some salt on them inside and out, and now I'm going to flour them. Meunière means the miller's wife, la belle meunière. She's always supposed to be beautiful and covered a little bit with flour, I imagine. And this is going to be, I'm going to cook these in clear melted butter, clarified butter, or you can do it with butter and olive oil. If you're going to be the best and the fanciest, do it with the clear melted butter. And you want about 1/8 of an inch of oil in the pan, and you want to get it nice and hot, but not too hot, and you want to keep watching it as you saute the fish to make sure that the butter isn't burning. That really should be a little bit hotter, but it's heating up now. And this is a large pan, and I'm using a no-stick one, which I think is marvelous for this kind of a dish, because this is about a 12-inch pan, and you want to saute them about 5 or 6 minutes on each side. And just keep watching them and regulate the heat. And while these are cooking, I'd like you to see 2 charming tricks that Madame Pasquier had for small boned fish. She did one with a whiting and one with a trout.
Maintenant, nous allons faire un autre poisson.
Now I'm going to do another fish.
Je vous propose le merlan à lorgnette.
And this is going to be the merlan in a lorgnette.
En lorgnette.
This is a very fancy way of doing this is like a little whitefish, or
Alors
whiting.
nous allons détacher les filets de merlan du poisson, mais sans lui retirer sa tête.
I'm going to detach the fillets from the bone, but leave the head on.
Je dégage doucement l'arête.
And very carefully she takes out the bone from the center. You see, c'est très bien le merlan parce que les arêtes, it has a simple bone structure, so this
C'est un
works out nicely.
très bon poisson, très fin, et c'est un poisson de régime.
And this is, if you're on a diet, this is a good
Alors je
fish.
lui sectionne sa colonne vertébrale,
Cut its spinal cord,
j'enlève les viscères,
and the viscerals are out.
et je vais retirer maintenant les petites arêtes dorsales.
Oh, and there's some little bones along the back, and she's going to take those out. Look at that. Voilà. Ça, c'est bien. C'est
voilà.
charmant.
Un
Ouais.
merlan prêt à faire au
Oh.
four ou à frire.
You can either bake it or fry it. Mais c'est charmant.
Alors maintenant, nous allons faire un maquereau en colère.
Now we're going to do a mackerel enraged.
Un maquereau en colère, c'est-à-dire une incision
You cut either side of the backbone,
de chaque côté de l'arête.
each side of the bone. Ah, ça c'est bien.
Vous voyez?
Aha, and there's the little bone and completely disengaged from the flesh.
Je fais tomber l'arête
Pull out the bone like that. And
et en
there's-
même temps,
and in the same time, there are all the insides.
je vais faire
Mais
tomber
c'est
toutes les
parfait.
viscères.
And everything. Mais c'est tellement plus simple que les autres façons de
N'est-ce
faire,
pas?
n'est-ce pas?
Alors, vous
So
avez
there
la
it is,
possibilité
completely
de les mettre en
furious.
colère. On retire les branchies
Pull out the gills.
et maintenant, on lui passe sa
Oh, and then
queue.
you put his tail. Oh, ça c'est gentil aussi. Ça c'est très français. And there's his tail coming out. Oh,
Regardez
mais
ce
je trouve
petit
que
maquereau en
mais ça
colère.
c'est merveilleux. Here are our truite meunière, our sautéed trout. I've just turned them over and they need 3 or 4 minutes more of cooking. Now that's fun, isn't it, that Madame Pasquier's way of fixing those little fish. And you can fix any small fish that way. And I'm going to show you how to cook them. Now here is your And I've done these both on little trout. And there's your truite en lorgnette. This looks like a little ram's head, doesn't it? And then here is, I'm going to unlorgnette it so that we can cook it. And then here is the truite en colère, the one fish that's so mad he's eating his tail. And then with both of these are lovely little fresh trout that come from Idaho, and they're flown in, and if you keep them on ice, they just keep perfectly. There's no reason why we can't have fresh fish all over the country, because they've got wonderful methods now for sending it. I'm now painting both sides of the fish with butter, and then they're going to be seasoned. And they've got to have a little salt and pepper on them. And then a little flour. I just put a little flour on it. It seems to hold them together a little bit while they're cooking, not very much. Now I'm going to roll up the lorgnette. So you notice all this is that the bone is out of the center, and you just left the head attached. In France, you always leave the head attached on the fish so that you know what it is. And then I'm going to put this in a little buttered dish. And then here is the lorgnette, and this you have to see, it's the fillet, it hasn't been closed. I mean, the belly is still intact. And this is en colère. I'm going to have to take my impeccably clean purple towel to push that tail through the mouth there. Here she comes. There. That's really a very amusing thing to do. And this also is going to go onto our little dish. And then I think a little bit of breadcrumbs is good. I'm just going to bake these in the oven, start baking them, and then do a little bit of broiling at the very end. And I think that the breadcrumbs protects the fish. And then it should have a little bit of butter on, and then they go to the oven. Sprinkle on the butter, and then they're going into a 375-degree oven. And they should bake for about 15 minutes, and baste them 2 or 3 times. And at the end, when you feel that they're done, put them under the broiler just to brown very, very lightly. And while they're baking, we can finish the trout sautéed in butter, the truite meunière. I'm going to put them onto a platter, but first, how to tell when they're done. Now, if you open it up inside, I don't know how well you can see that, but open it up in the inside where the bones should be white with no red. And if you have done a fish that has not been opened this way, you open it up at the back a little bit. And if the flesh just comes away from the bone, it's done. I think when people say when the fish flakes easily, it's done, that it's overdone, actually. It's because the fish should still be juicy. There, they're on the platter. And then if your butter is burned, pour it out and add some fresh butter. And this will be a beurre noir. And you notice this is clear melted butter. There isn't any speckling of sort of milk and so forth left in it, which will make it darken. And then we want to have a bit of lemon. And I have a really impeccably clean purple towel to squeeze some lemon juice on over the fish. And then a little bit of parsley on each. And then we want that butter to be really hot, because then when you pour it over the fish, it's going to sizzle. So that's why you want your parsley and your lemon. Now that looks good and hot, and we'll just pour that on. Now watch. And this naturally you want to serve immediately. You're not going to be able to get it sizzling. It won't be sizzling in the dining room, but you just can't wait. Now I'm going to get the little baked trout. These are the ones that were en lorgnette. I'm going to put them here so that you can look at them. And en colère. And with these you serve one per person. They're really very attractive, and they're very nice because they're completely boned so that they're easy to eat. And here are the truites meunières, the trout sautéed in butter. And I'm going to show you how to eat these. I think a lot of people, particularly children, are afraid of fish because of the bones. But I think if you show them how to eat the fish, they'll be, I'll probably better put my glasses on again. There you have the fish with your tail away from you and the back to your right. And then with a spoon and a fork, you come right down the back. You remember the fish bone is practically like the flounder that has a long bone that goes the length of the fish. And you turn that over. And then here is your central bone. And you just lift that out. You see that is just done because the bone comes off. You need a bone plate. And then I think particularly for children, take out the little bones around on the chest. And with this fish, I would serve a Riesling wine and parsleyed potatoes and a cucumber salad. And I'd also a little bit of butter on top. And that's the whole fish story today on The French Chef. This is Julia Child. Bon appétit.
The French Chef has been made possible by a grant from the Polaroid Corporation. Julia Child is co-author of Mastering the Art of French Cooking, Volumes 1 and 2.